In this video, I'm going to show you how to find your next $10,000 client in the next 30 days without spending any money. And just so you know, these are strategies that are working now that I personally use to find clients who have paid me thousands and tens of thousands of dollars over the years. This works if you're a service-based business, a freelancer, a social media marketing agency, a coach, a consultant. Basically, if you sell any kind of service or a digital product, these strategies are going to work. If you stay to the end of the video, I'm going to give you the exact templates that I use in this video that I'm using right now for cold outreach. You can just steal them. I'm going to show you all the tools you need, how to set it up. This is a complete masterclass. So let's just get an understanding of why this is so useful and so important. So a little bit about me. Who am I? Well, my name is Austin, and I made my first dollar online selling wooden products like rolling pins and cutting boards, selling those on Etsy back in 2012. Here's actually my Etsy shop from back then. There's nothing in the store at this point because I've abandoned this, but this is where I made my first money online. And then a few years after opening that Etsy store, I opened an Amazon e-commerce store. So I was selling wood products, the rolling pins, cutting boards, but then I started an Amazon FBA store where I was selling supplies to other woodworkers. And so between those two, those were making a little bit of money on the side. I was still working a day job, but it was my first real experience doing stuff online. And then a few years later, I decided to launch a course about woodworking. And I used Teachable initially to do this. My thought here was this is a three-pronged attack. I was selling the wood products themselves to consumers. I was selling the supplies to woodworkers, and then I was selling courses to people who wanted to become woodworkers. Honestly, between those three sources of income, I was making a little bit of money, but mostly I just learned a lot of stuff. I learned how to create websites. I learned how to effectively implement SEO. I learned how to do all kinds of email marketing strategies. I learned how to create lead magnets. I learned how to run ads on Facebook and YouTube. I learned how to build landing pages. I learned basic copywriting. And I learned how to run a profitable e-commerce store. Even though I wasn't making that much money, the stores were profitable. But the problem was they just weren't profitable enough. So I learned all these useful skills, but I just couldn't quite get this little woodworking-based business with the three different income sources. I couldn't get it to work. I was working a tremendous amount of hours. I was still having to work a day job. Now I'm making wood products. I'm supplying woodworker stuff on the Amazon e-commerce store. And I'm also filming and editing courses all the time. It's just a tremendous amount of work for very little actual profit. Something was missing. And then one day I heard a podcast where a guy named Andrew Tate was talking about making money online. And this was probably 2021. And at the time, Andrew Tate sold a course/community called Hustlers University, which is still around today. It's called The Real World. And within The Real World, there's a bunch of campuses where they teach you how to make money online. One of the campuses is the copywriting campus. And back then, I don't know if they still do this now. I don't think they do. But back then, they taught people not only copywriting, but they taught people how to do cold outreach. In other words, how to find businesses who are strangers, business owners who are strangers, how to craft a good email, a good offer, outreach those strangers, and get those strangers to pay you money. At the time, I was like, oh, this is a really cool concept. I'll just do this kind of on the side to everything else I'm doing. So I spent several hours every single day doing the process, learning the process of cold outreach. And I did it for months with zero results. I would wake up early in the morning. I would spend 2 to 3 hours a day finding potential leads, finding their contact information, sending them messages, and then I'd go to work, and then when I got home from work, I would do the woodworking related stuff, and then on the weekends, I would do the woodworking related stuff. And I did the cold outreach stuff for months, several months straight, without really seeing any results. I just committed to it. I was like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to see if I can turn it into a little side thing. I'll either burn out from it entirely or I'll succeed. And after about 2 months, I checked my emails and somebody had responded to one of my outreach messages. He was just a small business owner. He was selling some kind of course of his own, and he just wanted some help with some email marketing stuff, do some website stuff, fix some stuff with his Teachable or his Kajabi store. And he paid me $250 to do that. My mind was blown because to this point, I thought it was kind of crazy, the concept of outreaching strangers and then just having them pay you money. I thought that was wild. I didn't totally believe it was possible, but in that moment, I was like, oh, wow, this is real. Up to this point, I've been sending emails every single day for several months, and I have little, follow-up sequences that were going out to people. So I landed this client, but in the background, I've got follow-up messages just on automation going out. So over time, I built up a tremendous amount of momentum. So when I closed this one client for $250, it was actually just the start of several more clients that were right behind it. And so after that first client, I actually closed 5 or 6 more in a row over the course of several weeks. And most of them are for a couple $100 here and there, a little bit of money. But one of them in particular paid me $2,000 for a bunch of services, including some email marketing stuff. And it was in that moment I realized, wow, it was like a light bulb turned on. I don't have to do all of this woodworking stuff. I could just sell my skills that I've learned over the years, my marketing skills, and I could make money from doing that. And I could help other businesses who already sell courses, who already sell coaching. I can help them grow their business. I don't have to worry about making wood stuff or managing an e-commerce store. It's just too much work. And so I just went all in on the cold outreach. So that year, I spent months doing even more cold outreach. And I just built up momentum and I started stacking retainers. I had some clients paying me a couple $100 a month, but I had other clients paying me $1,000, $2,000 a month. And towards the end of the year, it got to the point where I had enough money coming in from cold outreach, that I could quit my job, that I could quit all the woodworking stuff, and I could just go full time into freelance/social media marketing. And that's exactly what I did. Now, I'm happy to say those skills that I learned back then in 2021, 2022, those cold outreach skills, those skills still work to this day. And even the tools that I was using back then, I'm still using them to this day to find new clients. In this video, I'm going to teach you exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to break it all down. You're going to know the psychology behind it, why it works, the tools you need to use, how to outreach. I'm going to reveal it all. I don't think anybody else on YouTube is teaching this, at least not to this depth. I should probably paywall this because I'm going to create a bunch of competition for myself, but fuck it. I'm just going to release it. Why not? So just kind of an overview. There's 2 outreach strategies that are working in 2025. There's what's called the shotgun method and there's the sniper method. Now, the shotgun method is where you take some kind of templated message. So you just write it one time and then you find a giant list of people and then you blast that list with that one templated message. The one templated message might have some variables in it, like you swap out the name, maybe you put a little spin tax in it, meaning you randomize the message a little bit. But pretty much you've got one message, and your follow-up messages are also the same, but you've got one set of messages and you're sending it to everybody. And then your main focus is just finding quality lists, so to speak, that you can buy. And then it just becomes a volume game at that point. You're sending a mass outreach and you're hoping that you can get enough responses that you can cover your costs to do the mass outreach. That's the shotgun method. The sniper method is where you take more time carefully selecting who you actually outreach to, and then each person you select, you custom craft a message for each of those people. Now, there's still a ton of automation involved. You're going to craft messages one at a time, personalized, but then you're going to put them into a automation, and it's going to send the follow-ups. It's going to send the mass that the sends themselves are going to be all automated. There's more time involved in the sniper method, obviously, because you have to take your time and aim at individual prospects, but it's a lot cheaper to do. And it's also just a lot more effective because when people get personalized outreach messages, it just stands out more. Your reply rates are going to be a lot higher, and the number of calls that you book are going to be a lot higher as well. Generally speaking. Just to be clear, I know tons of people using the shotgun method that are making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year doing it. It absolutely works. It's just not something I recommend you start with. If you're doing cold outreach, I recommend you start with the sniper method, learn the process behind it, the psychology behind it. Once you get really good at the sniper method, you can take a lot of that stuff and just apply it to the mass outreach stuff. And you'll be very, very good at doing mass outreach from that point. So like I said, you take a templated message, let's say a list of 10,000 people, you blast them. Whereas with the sniper method, you're taking one fully customized message and you're just sending it to one person. Okay, so what do you need to do the sniper method? Well, you only need 3 tools. You need Google Sheets, which is obviously free, so you can input data. You need the Streak Chrome extension, which is also free. They have a paid variation, but you don't need it. You just need the free version. And then you also need Gmail or Google Workspace. Now, you can get away with using Gmail. I used Gmail for years doing cold outreach, but as time goes on, Google is getting more and more restrictive with how they allow you to send emails, especially if you're sending a lot of emails. And so you might end up having some problems with Gmail accounts. You might even get blacklisted. It's potentially possible. So yes, technically you can get away with just using a Gmail account. I've done it, but I would highly advise you get a Google Workspace account, attach it to a domain that you own. So your name at yourbusinesswebsite.com. Your deliverability will be a lot higher. Your response rates will be higher because it looks like a professional domain, and you're going to have less problems with blacklisting and stuff like that. Google Workspace costs like $12 a month or something like that. So I highly recommend you get that. All right, so let's get into technically how to do this. What is the sniper method? What does it involve? There's 5 key components. So the first thing you need to understand is the offer. So if you're doing cold outreach and you've gotten this far into the video and you don't have some kind of offer, I don't really know what you're doing, because you need an offer. You need a core offer. You need something that you're selling, some kind of service, some kind of consulting, some kind of coaching. That's your core offer. It's probably a high ticket thing. You might have several offers. You might have like a high ticket thing and maybe some smaller things that you're also selling, but you need a core offer. Otherwise, don't even bother doing outreach. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. But you also need a free value offer. And a free value offer is what hooks them in. So your core offer is your main high ticket service. Your free value offer is something that you're going to give to people when you cold outreach them, which builds trust and authority. It's something they can use and hopefully make money with. And the purpose of the free value, leverage a psychological trick called the rule of reciprocity. And what that means is when you do something for somebody else, you go out of your way to help them, you give them something, subconsciously, they feel like they owe you one. They feel like they have to pay you back. They might not even realize that, but that's like an underlying understanding. You do something for somebody, they want to do something for you back. When we do our cold outreach, if you outreach a bunch of businesses and you give them something up front that helps them, that's genuinely useful, maybe even it makes them money, and you just give it to them for free, they feel compelled subconsciously to pay you back in some way. It opens doors for you. It helps a lot with the process. And so later on down the road, as you're talking to them a little bit more and you ask them to, let's say, set up a call with you, they're like, oh, this guy's done so much for me already that the least I could do is get on a quick call with him. And that's where you close them. Or sometimes you get on the call with them and you do even more free work for them to establish trust even more, build even more rapport, and build even more reciprocity. And then on the future calls when you sell them on something. But that's why it's so important. You do need some kind of free value offer. So let me give you some examples of free values. If you're let's say you're an email marketer for e-commerce stores, you would outreach people and you would offer them an email flow. Maybe you'll send them a video demonstrating how you typically set up email flows for abandoned cart checkouts, right? And then you might even craft them a bunch of messages with their branding on it and just give it to them. And then when the e-commerce store gets that, they're like, oh, wow, this guy clearly knows what he's talking about. This is how he's setting up his cart flow, his abandoned cart flows. This is how he's structuring his emails. This is what the emails look like. And so it just builds a tremendous amount of trust, because you have to remember, you're a stranger. When you're outreaching complete strangers, it's assumed by default that you're a scammer. And so you have to put quite a lot of effort into proving that you are absolutely an authority. And one way that people do this is they just have a social media following. That's the easiest way to build authority. You've got a huge following, you've got content out there, so when people look you up, they can see you're the real deal. So if you have that, that's already a huge advantage if you're doing cold outreach. But chances are, if you have a large audience, you don't even need to do cold outreach, because you're able to just attract clients into your sphere by putting out content. And so the next best thing that you can do to build authority is to just give people samples of your work. Just give them free stuff. It demonstrates you know exactly what you're talking about, builds that trust, hooks them in, and gets that reciprocity like I talked about. All right, so next step in the sniper method, you have an offer. Now you need to find qualified prospects. So what is a qualified prospect? Well, there's 2 components. Number 1 is they have to already be making money. And number 2, they have to already have some kind of fan base. So it has to be one of these 2 things. They have to already be making money, and or they have to already have some kind of fan base online. The reason this is important is because if they're not already making money, or if they're not already generating a tremendous amount of traffic, then they're not going to be able to pay you. So if you outreach people, you outreach e-commerce stores, they've got a bunch of products, but they have no volume, they have no sales coming in. How are they going to pay you for your services? They're not going to be able to. So that's the basics of qualifying prospects. Make sure that people you're outreaching have money. If they don't have money, you're not going to make money. That's just how it works. It's as simple as that. Now, where do you find these people? Where do you find qualified prospects that are already making money and already have a fan base? Well, the simplest way that I find, and this is not a complete list of all the ways you can find prospects. The simplest way is to train your Instagram algorithm and train your YouTube algorithm to find these prospects. So what I recommend you do is you have a separate dedicated Instagram account just for business. Maybe it's your business account, or maybe it's a separate private anonymous Instagram account that you're not using for any silly nonsense. You're not watching political stuff on it. You're not watching comedy or video game related stuff, anything like that. It's purely just for finding prospects because you don't want to taint the algorithm. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that account, you're going to find an example of somebody that's your ideal prospect on Instagram or on YouTube. You're going to find that person, you're going to interact with some of their videos. You're going to like them, you're going to comment on them, you're going to follow or subscribe to that person. And then you're just going to scroll through the For You page or the Reels page, and you're just going to find other people as the algorithm recommends them. And one thing too is when you follow people on Instagram, it'll actually underneath the follow button, it'll recommend people that are similar to that person that you just followed. And so that's another way to to train the algorithm. So you want to follow, let's say 50 people. Go out there onto YouTube, onto Instagram with a brand new account, find a couple ideal prospects, and then let the algorithm just deliver other people to you. And then interact with those people too, like and follow them. And what will end up happening over time, within a few days of doing this, is the algorithm will just zero in on exactly the type of content, the type of prospects that you're looking for. So again, if let's say you're somebody that likes to specialize in working with realtors, or you're somebody that likes to work with content marketers or videographers, you find that ideal prospect, you train the algorithm to bring you more of those ideal prospects, and then you just have a lead generation source that you can just scroll through every day to find contact information, which we're going to get into in a second. So that's the purpose of this. That's why it's so powerful. Again, this is not the only place to find prospects. One thing I left out of this little diagram here that's another great source is local businesses, local, contractors or chiropractors or whatever, businesses that are local to you. It's very easy to find their contact information, and the competition is also extremely low. So that's another way that you can find potential clients, is just locally. All right, so you're finding qualified prospects. What's next? Well, next is you want to get their email address. There's a couple methods that I use. I use what I call the Instagram method. So a lot of times when you're scrolling through Instagram, you open somebody's profile. Sometimes you can, on your phone, you can sometimes see a contact button. And when I click that contact button, you can see this person's email address just pops up. That doesn't happen all the time, but it happens fairly often. So that's very useful. That's one useful way that you can find potential clients, potential prospects. The other thing you can do is look that person up on YouTube. Maybe they have a big channel on Instagram. You don't see their contact information. You go to YouTube instead. So let's go to YouTube. Here's a guy named Mark Manson, who's a dating and sort of life advice type coach. If you go to his YouTube channel and you click more, then you scroll down to where it says view email address, click on that, and then you submit the CAPTCHA. There's his email address right there. Boom. And so that's another simple way that you can potentially find email addresses. Now, if both those methods fail, which oftentimes they do, then you can try the Apollo method, which is apollo.io. And this is just a database of contact information. You can go here, you can enter somebody's information. Let's say it's Mark Manson again. Let's say we're trying to find him. You scroll through this list here, and you can see the green check mark indicates that Apollo has that person's email in their database. So there's all different types of Mark Mansons here. If you scroll down to the bottom, I already did this earlier, but down here at the bottom, markmanson.net, there he is, Mark Manson. There's his contact info. And by the way, Apollo is one of many different lead databases that exist out there. This is, if you're going to do the shotgun method, you'd probably end up using something like Apollo, but it's also useful just for finding individual one at a time email addresses as well. And then if all that fails, send a DM. The probability that they're going to respond to a DM is a lot lower than an email, in my experience, because what tends to happen on Instagram is when you send a DM, it goes to the requested box, the requested inbox in their messages, and very few business owners or influencers or whatever, very few of them ever check that box. So unfortunately, lower probability they'll ever see you. What you can do to raise the probability a little bit is like and comment on some of their stuff, kind of build a little bit of engagement. You might even say in one of your comments that, if you can get a reply out of the person, be like, hey, by the way, I sent you a message, check it out, right? Figure out a way that you can try to get them to check that message. But that's kind of a last resort thing. I don't do that very often. I've done it before, but hopefully you can find their email using one of these 3 methods so you don't have to resort to them. Okay, so you found their email address. Now what do we do? Well, now you're going to actually craft the outreach message. So the way I do this, because we're going to try to do this in bulk to try to save some time, automate some stuff. So what I do is I put together a spreadsheet. And my spreadsheet looks like this. Let me see if you can see the columns here. First name, email addresses, industry, products, complement, free value, transformation. Each of these columns represents a variable that we're going to save. And so if we want to refer to the person's name, we're going to just put the variable first name and it'll auto-complete that in Streak, which I'll show you in a second. So where this becomes powerful, you've got name, email, complement, free value, transformation. Where this becomes powerful is when you start with the complement. So the way that I structure my outreach messages is I've got some kind of subject line, and then the opening part of the message is some kind of compliment. And the reason this works is because it's a way of creating a very personal message to the person. And what a lot of people do, a mistake that a lot of people make when they're doing outreach, is they'll send a compliment, but they'll just make something kind of generic. And they'll just be like, hey, I love your videos. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. What you want to do instead is be very specific, especially if you could be specific about something that has to do with the service that you offer. So if you're an email marketing guy and you can craft a compliment around something related to their current email marketing, it shows that you know what you're talking about, but it also kind of pre-frames the conversation in the general direction of email marketing. So here's an example. This is one that I actually sent recently. I said, I think I've learned more about branding from watching your reels than any course I've ever paid for. It's not even close, LOL. Your lighting and camera tutorials are simply superb. And there's some typos in there if you look closely. Those are not intentional, but that actually does help you a little bit because it demonstrates that you're not just, you're probably typing this for real. So it seems more genuine. But as you can see, that's a compliment that is very personal. And honestly, it could have been more personal. What you could do to take this up to the next level is be very specific about which reels that you're talking about, like reference a specific video. The main purpose of the compliment is to catch their attention and then prove that you actually are specifically speaking to them. So you want it to be very specific. So you're opening the door, you're giving them a little compliment, you're demonstrating that you are actually speaking to them, that it's not a shotgun blast, cold outreach to thousands of people, it's specifically to them. It's sort of a hook that leads into your free value, which comes later in the email. Before I move on to the free value, let me just point out too, I wrote this column as compliment, but what I also use this column for is pointing out problems and pain. So sometimes I won't even compliment them at all. I'll just point out something wrong with their marketing. I'll say, hey, this needs to get fixed. And I'll kind of try to press on some pain points a little bit, like, hey, you're potentially losing some money, or hey, this particular part of your website is kind of broken or something like that. And it serves the same kind of function because it's super personalized to them, but it's also got like a little bit of urgency to it as well. And it also demonstrates you know what you're talking about. So that's how you can also use the space. So it's a compliment / pain message, or threat, I guess you could say. So you write out a compliment. Oh, another note here is don't be a fanboy. You don't want to go over the top with like, oh my God, I love your videos so much. I've been watching you forever. Don't do that, because you don't want to pedestalize them, because then that frames the relationship in the wrong way. You don't want to make them seem above you. You want to sort of talk to them like they're on your level. Even if this is somebody that has millions of followers and you are kind of a fanboy of them, you want to talk to them directly, one-on-one, eye to eye, like an equal. If you come at them like a fan, then they're just going to treat you like a fan and they'll never hire you. Okay, so next is the free value. This is the next variable. So again, the purpose of a free value is to establish your authority. It gets your foot in the door. It's a no-risk offer that you can give to them, build that reciprocity. Some examples are some video edits, emails, custom training, website rewrites, some kind of custom plan to fit blank, some kind of, problem that they're dealing with. It's just something that they can have for free that's useful, that preferably makes them some money, but it demonstrates that you know exactly what you're talking about and it's actually useful to them in some way, right? So what I'll do is I'll take the time to write out this box. Here's an example. I wrote, I took the time to edit several of your long videos into highly engaging shorts that you can try out. You can have them completely for free. Want me to send them over? So that's the basic idea behind a free value variable that I'm writing. I'm just telling them that I made this thing for them. Do you want it? And then I ask them if they want me to send it over, because I'm not going to create the thing. I'm going to pretend I already created it. I'm going to tell them, hey, I already edited these videos. Hey, I already wrote these emails. I didn't, because I'm not going to bother doing the work unless they say, hey, yeah, send it over. So if they respond and they say, yeah, send it, then I'll work hard to get those edits done, and then I'll send it over. And then the last variable that I use is I call the transformation. This is basically just a summary, a 1 or 2 line summary of what your core offer actually is. So you've got your free value offer, no risk, they just have it. But then you want to, at some point, probably tell them what your core offer is. And the way I like to phrase this, just to keep it straight to the point, is I help X achieve Y without Z. That's a very simple way of breaking down whatever you offer it into just a single sentence, right? Now, before I continue, I should just point out, if you don't have like a good offer yet, I have an entire video on offers. I think at this point I have several videos about offers. I'll link them in this video, but whatever your offer is, whatever you're selling, you should be able to condense it down into a sentence that summarizes what it is and why it's so valuable. And so that's sort of the point of this little variable that we're putting here. I help X achieve Y without Z. For example, I help realtors close a lot more deals without spending money on ads. That would be a great example if you're somebody that's like a video editor or an email marketer or something like that. You're helping realtors build up trust with their list or their audience and then make more money without spending money on ads. So often in this transformation box, I will pretty much copy and paste the same message. I'll reword it a little bit, because I will say, for example, I help SMMAs reach a lot more clients with content without spending 10 hours a week editing their own videos. If I might be outreaching several different niches, so I'll just sort of change around the sentence a little bit depending, but I like to store that in a variable so that I can reference it later. Okay, so that's the spreadsheet. So the idea here is that you just spend time, a couple hours a day, fill in all of these boxes out, get their name, get their email address, find the industry they're in, the products they're selling, make a special compliment for them, talk about the free value you're going to offer them, mention your transformation. I have a notes box here on the side. This is not a variable I use. It's just something that I can reference later if I'm going to do some kind of follow-up months from now and I just don't remember some details about this guy. I can just leave some messages, leave some notes for myself here. But the idea is you're going to just fill out 10 or 15 of these a day, more if you have tons of free time. And then these variables are stored so that when we go to streak, we can just fill it in. So you've crafted your outreach, and now it's time to actually send the message plus your follow-up sequence. So what you're going to do is after you fill this out, let's say you've got 10 of these, you're going to go to File, you're going to go to Download, and then you're going to go to comma separated values. Okay, next, if you haven't done this already, go download the Streak CRM for Gmail and add it to Chrome, and then go to your Gmail. And after you install it, over here on the left side, you'll see a little streak button. Click on that, open Mail Merges, then you're going to hit the plus sign over here on the right side, which will open a new message. So now we're going to upload our CSV. Now this is where we're going to craft an actual sequence. First thing I want to do is just write a subject line. So my favorite one to use that works very well, you can test whatever you want, but just as a starter subject line is the words quick question. And then what I'll do sometimes is just add their name. Variables down here at the bottom. Scroll down, first name, first underscore name. And then what I like to do is open the message with the complement, which is saved in this variable, field complement, and then end the message with my free value. And that's the whole message. Now, if you want to look at what does this actually look like, you can go over here on the right side to recipients, and the 2 example emails here, it auto fills it in. So if I click this first one, or if I just highlight this first one, you can see it fills in the 2 variables, and it changes based on, changes for each person. So if you got a list of people that you're outreaching, this is just a quick way that you can go in and make sure that everything makes sense, right? And then if you see something that's messed up, or you see a big typo or something, you can just click this little pencil icon and you can actually edit the variables that you've entered here. You can also preview the message by hitting this little eye or the box icon. All right, so go back to messages. And then what I like to do personally is just wait about 3 business days. You can change this around to whatever you want, but that's just how I do it. 3 business days. And then I'm going to add a follow-up. And then I'm just going to load this message and customize it. Now, in this video, I'm not going to get deep into follow-up sequences or anything like that, because it's just, that's requires a whole dedicated video. There's a whole process behind that. There's a lot of testing you're going to want to do. But I'll just give you some basic follow-up messages that you can use. So what I like to do with my first follow-up message is I like to just assume that they just didn't even see the first message, because a lot of times that's exactly what happens. The message gets lost in their inbox, especially if they're like a big business. They've got a lot of emails coming in. And so what I'll kind of do is just reiterate the first message. I'll be like, hey, just checking in case you missed my first message. And then I do the free value again. So what that looks like in practice is, hey, just checking in case you missed my first message. I took the time to edit several of your long videos into highly engaging shorts that you can try out. You can have them completely for free. Want me to send them over? Boom. That's the first follow-up message. Now, what I like to do is send at least 4 follow-ups total. So 5 total messages are going out. And again, I'm not going to get into all of these in this video because it's just too time-consuming. And there's so many things you can test out. I don't necessarily have the right way to do follow-ups. The point here is just to show you how to do the follow-ups in an automated way. So let's just say I'll do one more. 4 days after that, we're going to send another message. And oftentimes, what I like to use is the transformation variable, because this is just a summary of what you do. So you're assuming the first 2 messages, maybe they were read, maybe they weren't seen, but your third message is now just a one-liner summary of what you do. And then let me know if you're interested. Boom. That's the third message. You can add, you could add a follow-up message as just an emoji, or you could add a follow-up message as just the word bump or whatever. You can do whatever you want. You can get kind of creative with this. The whole purpose of a follow-up is just to bump the email thread back up in front of their face to remind them of it. If you want to get really crazy with this, you can add follow-ups that stretch out months into the future. So you could have, a follow-up that goes out 3 days, 7 days later, 3 weeks later, and then another one like 3 months later. You'll be surprised. Sometimes those types of follow-ups will actually work, because maybe the first time they saw your message, they didn't really need your service, but they kind of filed you at the back of their mind. And then 3 months later, you're still sending follow-up messages. There's a chance that they might actually be interested in your service 3 months later. Normally at this point, after you put together your follow-up message, you just hit start mail merge. I'm going to just discard this. But when you have a mail merge put together, and like I said, you can try out many different things, many different types of follow-up sequences or subject lines. But all you have to do, if you want to keep reusing that same mail merge over and over again, is just click on the one, because you might have a list of them here with different subject lines. Click on the one that you want to use, open it up, and then click the little add to CSV file on the top right. And so you can just keep using the same mail merge over and over again. Keep adding every day. You can just keep adding new people to it. So in this way, you don't have to make a brand new mail merge every time you do outreach. What you can do is just make a mail merge one time. It's got the subject line, you've got a bunch of follow-ups, you've got a certain template that you're using, and every day you just add new people to it through a CSV file. The only reason when you want to make a brand new mail merge is if you're going to try to test something new. You're going to try a different follow-up sequence, you're going to try a different subject line, you're going to switch around the order that you do things, but otherwise you can just keep reusing the same one over and over again if you want. So you've created your mail merge, you've imported the CSV into Streak, you've wrote your follow-up sequence, and then you're just going to press send. And that is the basics of the sniper outreach. If you committed to outreaching 5 to, let's say, 20 people every single day, putting them in a mail merge, doing your follow-up sequence every single day. You tweak stuff, you test stuff out, you try out different styles of compliments, you try to rephrase your transformation a little bit, you play around with different types of free values, and you just start putting tons of people into these automated sequences. You're going to start to build momentum. And at first, you're not going to see any results, but eventually, you're going to get kind of good at doing this. And what's going to happen is exactly what happened to me back when I first started doing this. Is after a few weeks or maybe a month or two, you're going to compound your skills. You're going to learn how to write great outreach emails, and people are going to start responding positively. And some of them are going to say yes to your free value. And so then it's just a matter of quickly creating your free value, whatever it is, your video edits, your emails or whatever, sending it off to them, and then trying to keep a dialogue open with that person, because that's now a warm prospect. That's somebody that's potentially could turn into a client, and you want to try to push them to get on a call with you. Now, that's a whole other process, the closing process. I'm going to have to make a dedicated video about that. But I promise you, if you commit to this system, you will close your next client. And if you get good enough at it, that client will pay you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars over the coming months and years. So I hope you found this video useful. I'm going to give you the Google Sheets template that I use in this video. All you have to do is save a copy for yourself, and then you can literally use it for your Streak mail merges. If you're a business owner that needs help setting up anything related to with marketing, or you want my consultation for doing cold outreach, you want to invest a little bit to have somebody with an expert eye go over your outreach, you can book a call with me down below. I will gladly help you out. And if you found this video useful, somewhere on the screen, another video that's related to this is going to pop up. I think you'll find it super useful too. I actually have a whole playlist about doing cold outreach, finding prospects, what to say to them, how to make your offer, how to close them on the call. You can go check that out. Other than that, I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.